Hello! In this video I'm going to discuss the multitude of benefits that foraging brings into your life and why I think it's such a great hobby to take up. Now of course, like all hobbies, it won't be for everybody. Not everybody likes skiing, golf, tennis, playing the piano, hiking, just like not everybody will like foraging. But if you're a little bit intrigued or on the fence, or maybe you've never even heard of foraging, or maybe you just don't know enough about it, then hang around as I first of all very quickly define foraging, and then we'll dive into the incredible benefits of this amazing hobby. So let's start with the basics. What is foraging? There's various definitions, but my own personal definition is that foraging is searching for, identifying and gathering wild foods such as plants, flowers, mushrooms, fruits, nuts, seeds, shellfish and seaweeds if you're by the coast, and using those kind of things for food, obviously, but also for medicinal purposes and even for bushcraft type purposes such as making your own string. Anyway, without further ado, let's dive now into the benefits of foraging. First up, foraging gets you exercising outdoors in the fresh air, which is so good for your physical and mental health. And the great thing about foraging is it's not intense exercise. It's a much more pleasurable exercise, such as gentle walking, reach up and down to collect things and so on. And so it contributes towards your physical health and longevity, but without it being uncomfortable or painful and putting strain on your joints like so many forms of exercise do. So quite simply, foraging is a great exercise to keep you healthy. And of course, because you're doing it outdoors in the fresh air, it also gives your brain a boost, all the lovely fresh air, the oxygen, and it just really reinvigorates you. I honestly don't think I've ever been outside to forage, or even just for a walk for that matter, and come back feeling worse. I always feel better mentally. My second benefit is that foraging gives you a reason to go outside exercising in the first place. Of course, we all know we should go outside more, we all know we need to exercise, but knowing something is good for you often isn't good enough to actually make you do it. Sometimes you just need a bit of a kick, a bit of an extra reason to do something. And foraging gives you that. It gives you that extra reason to actually go outside and do a bit of exercise in the first place. My next benefit is that foraging is good for the immune system, and this in itself is for a couple of other reasons. First of all, foraging, because you're out in nature and exercising and getting that fresh air, it lowers your stress and anxiety. And because stress and anxiety is bad for your immune system, by removing that stress and anxiety, foraging is therefore good for your immune system. It has a positive impact on it. On top of that, the very act of exercising, moving your body, is also good for your immune system. And the fact that you're actually out in nature, getting into contact with a bit of dirt, for want of a better word, that in itself is really good for your immune system. Because like anything, a fit immune system comes from training it and coming into contact with the harmless kind of germs and bacteria that you find out in nature is genuinely good for keeping your immune system on its toes, so it's ready to fight more serious pathogens. Next up, foraging provides you with nutritious, healthy food, often organic as well. Unfortunately, some of you might say, there are no pizzas and cakes in the wild, but that's a good thing in the sense that all you can eat in the wild, the only kind of things you can eat, like plants and mushrooms and fruits and nuts, they're all really good for you, full of minerals, vitamins, proteins, healthy fats. And to give you a quick example, take nettles. I kid you not, if nettles were sold in the supermarket, they would be considered a superfood based on their nutrient profile. They are packed with goodness and they literally are a superfood. It's just that instead of being in the supermarket, they're growing out there in the wild. Another benefit of foraging, which I touched upon near the beginning, is that many plants have medicinal qualities as well. And this, of course, further contributes to your physical health and general well-being. Next, foraging often involves being out in nature surrounded by greenery and woodlands and that kind of thing. And studies have shown, countless studies have shown in fact, that that is so good for your mental health and well-being. Unbelievably good. Foraging, and more generally just being out in nature, allows you to switch off from the hustle and bustle and stresses of modern life and just be present and focused on the world around you. It can be almost like a more active form of meditation. The result is a more relaxed, peaceful state, resulting in further benefits to your mental health and well-being. There was even a study done in a hospital which showed that patients recovering from an illness recovered quicker when they had a view of some kind of green space or trees compared to patients who had a view of nothing more than a brick wall. And it just goes to show the incredible power of nature, the healing power of nature. My next benefit is that by foraging, you are connecting with the most primitive and natural version of you, and that just feels fantastic. Many people on foraging courses comment how foraging just feels right to them, and I believe this is because foraging is in our DNA. Not literally, of course, but hopefully you know what I mean. Because, of course, before agriculture, which in the context of human history is a tiny sliver of our history, if you imagine human history as being like this, agriculture is like this. It's just a tiny part of it. We used to be scavengers, in other words, hunters and gatherers, or in other words, foragers. And so it feels natural to forage on a deep subconscious level. We are not evolutionarily hardwired to be sat indoors all day staring at a screen, but we are literally evolutionarily hardwired to forage, and that just feels fantastic. My next benefit is that foraging reconnects you with nature and can even make you appreciate the natural world at large even more. I kid you not, since I took up foraging, I have just become so much more interested in all sorts of other things, such as trees and how trees work, sea tides, bushcraft. And the outside world, when I go out now, always seems more interesting and vibrant than it did during the years when I became disconnected from nature. And it reminds me of an interview that I once saw with David Attenborough when he was asked by the interviewer, when did you find your love of nature, or when did you discover your love of nature? And he replied back something like, when did you lose yours? And it's so true. We are all born with a natural love of nature. Nobody finds a love of nature. We're born with it. It's just that unfortunately most of us lose it. We become disconnected from nature. The fact that we're born with this love of the natural world is something you can see in young children who can be endlessly fascinated by nature. And I know that we human beings like to think we're very special and everything, and in some ways we are, because we've got these incredible brains and everything we can do, but in other ways we're not special at all. We really aren't special. We're just part of nature. We're flesh and blood like every other animal. And because we are literally part of nature, it feels so good to connect or reconnect with nature. It just does wonders for your sense of well-being, your peace of mind, and there are few better ways to connect with nature than through foraging. Okay, we're nearing the end now. Just a couple of bonus benefits to finish off, and one of the most perhaps obvious benefits of foraging is free food. Who doesn't like a bit of free food? Now, of course, how much of a benefit this is will depend on your financial situation, but the fact is, free food is pretty good for anyone, I think, and the kind of things that you can forage, plants, mushrooms, fruits, nuts, are things that tend to be quite expensive in supermarkets. So you can make some decent savings, especially if you do really get into it and make a bit of an effort. Another benefit that is perhaps more specific to children, but maybe some adults too, is that foraging can give you a real appreciation of where food comes from and even of nature itself, which can in turn lead to a healthier respect for our planet, which may help create a cleaner, less litter-driven future for all of us. So foraging, when it's done responsibly at least, can actually be good for the environment, as well as teaching kids about nature and food. And my final benefit is for parents, which is very simply this: foraging is a great activity to do as a family. It really does help you to connect with your kids, to bond with them, to develop relationships, and of course teach them about nature and teach them a valuable skill and even teach them about life to some extent as well. So, as I said, it might not be for everyone, but if you want to learn a new skill, a survival skill, which is maybe another benefit, the fact that it is a survival skill, and who knows, with the way the world's going, it could be something that's useful in the future. But if you want to learn a new skill, which in itself is good for your confidence, then think about it, look into it, do a bit of research and get foraging. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.